Hi everyone and welcome along to Sonic Academy with me, Chris. Today I have the pleasure of chatting to a truly global superstar of the dance scene. His career is strong today as it was 25 years ago, 15 years ago, not 25, making him older than he is. He's also got the best hair in the dance scene. Please welcome to Sonic Academy the one, the only, Ferry Corsten. Hi Ferry, you there?
Hey man, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, good. That was a nice intro.
Yeah, I sped forever in those intros. Ferry, it's been a while since we've chatted. We used to be on the same agency. And we DJ'd quite a bit back in the day, and it's lovely to see you again. Yeah. How's things?
Good man. Yeah, it's on various levels. It's nice. Everything is great. Our family is doing really well. We just spoke about it a little earlier. You know, the two little dragons that keep me busy on the at moments when I'm not making music.
Brilliant.
And other than that, music and it's a passion and a hobby. We both feel that, right? And it's just once you're locked into this box called a studio, you forget to eat, you forget to drink, you forget what time it is, and all of a sudden another day has passed. And
I mean, you've been going since, you released your first record at 16, so you've been at this, we'll say 20 years, not giving away your age too much. How do you keep the passion still going? How do you still go into the studio and go, I still want to do this?
I think it never really ends, there's always, how can I say? Your hands always land on the keyboard in a different way. Mm-hmm. You find a new melody, you find new sounds. What I notice with me is just new plugins and new little toys always just create a spike of inspiration. Mm-hmm. And of course I also have my days where I don't really feel it. But I still always want to make the most out of the time that I can spend here, because I have to just like juggle between flying and performing worldwide and being here. So in case it doesn't really work in the sense of like coming up with actual music, there's always so much stuff to do, of like creating little sweeps and swoops and sound effects and your own little drum loops and whatever. There's always plenty of time where you don't really have to say like, I want to finish another track by the end of the day or something. So plenty of things. Yeah, I always keep myself busy, and I just want to be here.
And do you,
since I was little.
Do you, when you go into the studio, are you very strict in terms of time and how you spend time? Or you kind of, if creative things are happening, you work. If creative things aren't happening, you kind of drift off? Or how do you focus? How do you keep focused?
Well, I think once you have kids, it's a little different than before I had kids, where I used to say like, hey, you know what, I got to be in the studio. I want to finish this thing. I'm really in my flow, and I could have days here where I just sit here until 3-4 a.m. in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. But now, I've always actually, since I started making music and since I started, having my own company and working for myself and just doing this really as a career, I've always been more the type of person who said, okay, I want to approach this as like a normal working day almost. Mm-hmm. 9 o'clock in the studio, 6 go home or whatever. I used to have my studio in my house. Mm-hmm. Then 5 years ago we moved to this place here, which is sort of like 10 minutes from my house. So I do have that sort of going to the office sort of attitude. And I kind of like it because by nature I'm very structured with a lot of things. But like I said, if the situation asks me for like hey, you need to be here longer, or I really feel like I don't want to go home yet because I'm feeling it. Then I spend more time here. But in general, I really like to keep it as structured as possible. Yeah.
Cool. Well, look, let's go back to the sort of early days. You had a first release when you were 16. And that's back before keyboards and computers were a household item. How did you get a record out at such a young age, back in 93, 94 is that?
91 we had the first one out. Yeah. And I say we because I did it with 3 other guys. Mm-hmm. Sort of like the time when I started going out clubbing, and it all stems, what I do all stems from like mixing records, doing cutting and pasting on these reel-to-reel tapes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and then when I started going out, I met these people who had the same interests, and one of them had like, well, we call it a studio, but it was nothing more than, I think he had an Akai S7000 sample keyboard, which had like, I believe 6 seconds stereo sample time. And that was one, and then like a Korg M1, and maybe I think we had a reverb, and then Cubase on Atari. That was it. Mm-hmm. And so we started working together, like four of us, just throwing in ideas, and that was it. And we were actually shopping those tracks that we made with the guys where we that worked in the record stores, where we bought our records for fun, for our hobby, DJing in your bedroom. Yeah, eventually we had a label in Belgium that was interested in our stuff. Yeah, and with that, with the advance that you get from that, and I was always the one who, the type of person is like, okay, I earned this with my music, I put it back into my music, I put it back into the studio. Mm-hmm. So eventually I was able to build all this from that. Yeah. Cool.
And you're hugely prolific back in those days. What was the scene like in Rotterdam? Was it very different than Amsterdam, or was it kind of similar, two similar cities, or?
No, there was always a big rivalry, really. And I think that's the beauty of I think that really shows where Holland is right now, or that created where Holland is right now, in terms of the people, the talent that comes from here. Amsterdam was almost like traditionally like a house city, had the famous house clubs like Roxy and It. Mm-hmm. And then Rotterdam was more known for hardstyle or hardcore or gabber at the time, with its flagship club Parkzicht, and I will also say, of course, we had like some major techno guys coming from Rotterdam. So I would say like the harder sounds and the techier sounds came from Rotterdam, and the more housey and suave stuff came from Amsterdam, really. Yeah.
And where does Breda fit into all that then?
Sorry, which one? Sorry.
Breda.
Breda is definitely it's south from where I am in Rotterdam. Mm-hmm. It's about half an hour, and I think Breda was sort of like a city that came later. That definitely started developing its own guys. Went with Thijs, with Chester. He was like the local guy, that local famous guy, who was actually working in Rotterdam in this record store. That's how I know him.
Yeah.
And I think with the whole trance movement, and Thijs, Breda was a city on the map, and now at Harwell and so many other guys coming from there. Yeah.
Cool.
Another one.
Why at the start? I mean, I was going through your biography yesterday, and I'd forgotten how many names that you went under. Jolly Good Fellow, Moonman, System F, Fur, all these names that you go on. And probably at the time I didn't realise that most of them were you. Why did you have so many aliases back in the day?
Well, I wasn't really DJing yet. I was just really in the studio all the time. And at the time I was really producing so quick. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes a bit of the irony of today. There's, because you have all these plugins and all these amazing opportunities to do all these crazy things, it's also really hard to say like, where do I stop, right?
Yeah.
You keep going and keep going. Back in those days, it was like, okay, I have this synth, I have that mixer, I have this effect unit and that one, and I have no more.
Yeah.
I have a sampler and that's it.
Yeah.
I work with this, bang, bang, bang. It sounds great. Boom, go out with it. So I really made tracks like really quick, and it was just simply too much music for one label to handle. Here comes Mr. Corsten again next week. 4 new tracks, and what I did is like, okay, I didn't want to sign my stuff at the time. Now you see like a lot of guys signing, with different labels with the same name. At the time, it was like a different sort of world. You could not sign this name to this label and then go with the next track under that name to another label.
Yeah,
labels were very protective of of the identities that they had on their label. So when I signed something with that label, I went with another pseudonym to another label, and so on. And eventually, I had so many projects out there, and everything sounded slightly different. And then when I started Tsunami Records, I had no artists on the label yet. So I did sort of like the same thing, but then in-house. Create all these different sort of names to have all that content on the label.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then when I started DJing, you know, things started changing because I was on the road a lot as well. So,
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What would you say was the breakout track back in the day? What was it? What was the one track that you thought, right now, you know, I've started to really cement my place in the industry?
It started with "Don't Be Afraid," Moonman.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one, and then the B-side actually took off in the UK, I believe, Galaxia, which was just to be honest, it's funny. That's a track that most people know from Moonman, which was actually a B2 track. You know, so on an EP with 4 tracks, and then B2, the most insignificant track on the EP, you know, was the one that actually got traction in the UK, and but because of that, you know. Also, I started receiving, or like, yeah, getting these requests in for remixing and stuff, and yeah, that sort of like went on for a little while, and then the next thing that really just did it was System F, Out of the Blue. Yeah,
it was just phenomenally big here in the UK. You know, Moonman, Galaxy is still, again, I went back over these tracks yesterday just going, wow, I'd forgotten this and forgotten that. And, you know, we were starting off in our careers around the same time as these tracks were big. And, you know, Robbie played these in clubs for, you know, and back in the day, Moonman would have built in a club for 6 months and just kept getting bigger every weekend. And then that's, you know, when we had anthems. How did you learn your craft back in the day? Was it literally, you know, there's no YouTube, did you go to college? Can you play? You know, was it just literally you spent every waking hour in the studio learning your craft?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, that knowledge just is, for me, it was something that just came by trial and error, really. You know, I never went to school for this. It's all self-taught. I can play a bit of keyboard, you know, but it starts with a good ear, I guess, you know, and knowing what you are looking for. And I mean, you give me any melody, any chord change or whatever, it's, you know, and I'll find it. It's easy, but I'm not like a Mozart that sits behind the piano and just, you know, like that. I'm not like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also, I guess, talking to a lot of people, you know, like I said, Thijs used to work at this record store, and the cool thing about that record store was the whole trance community came there, you know, pretty much. The Rank 1 guys, Chiesto obviously, I was there, Armin popped in every once in a while, you know, we're all just hanging out there, and none of us was really DJing yet, except Thijs, and we were always hanging out there, nerding around, having geek talk, you know, like, so we were learning a lot from each other as well.
Perfect.
I really went over to the Rank 1 guys, to their studio quite often, and we would be sitting there just, you know, going over how they made that kick and how I made that synth and this and that, and, you know, so but actually the real fine-tuning of your production in terms of like using the right compression there and EQing properly and all that stuff, that just really came a lot later. You know, Out of the Blue, actually, if I think about it, if I listen to it again now, it's like, whew, I can't believe I just got away with that then, you know. It sounded so raw, and maybe that was also the charm that it had, but I would never just, I wouldn't even let it leave my studio today.
Yeah.
Sound like,
no, absolutely. You know, if I go back and listen to El Nino or Every Day, I get cold sweats going, can nobody hear that kick? It's terrible. But you know, when you put all these records beside each other, they're off a time. They're off. I mean, there's one track we did called Frat Boy, and the MIDI timing in it is just all over the place. It's, you know, you can hear claps going out of time, and we used to we used to try and put the, you know, the kick at the top and then the hat, all the most important timing information and pads at the bottom, because our you know, our MIDI timing was terrible. And when you hear kids now, and they're rock solid, but they have a charm. It's like going back to mixing on vinyl. When you hear a DJ mixing on vinyl and pushing the record, it evokes all those old memories, you know. So it's definitely cool.
Oh yeah.
Let's go up to date. You know, I know you as one of the most prolific producers and DJs on the scene today. When you're traveling and DJing, are you constantly thinking about records? Are you thinking of melodies? Are you thinking of, you know, how am I going to put that? Or is it just you think about DJing when you're DJing and you think about studio when you're in the studio?
No, it's definitely sort of like all you know, running together. You know, I might be standing at a festival playing this and this record, and somehow the reflection of the room creates something in my mind, like, oh, I hear this. You know, hang on a minute, I just gotta, you know, I gotta remember this. You know, and after the show, I just type it in my phone, like, this is this track. You know, listen to it again, and then, you know, 9 times out of 10, that idea that I had, that all of a sudden popped up, will come back again when I hear that. So very often it's like when I'm playing, and it's just almost like, yeah, like what I said, like a reflection or something that creates another sort of way of listening to that record at that time, at that moment. Creates like a new idea. Very often it's just, yeah, I'm in the plane and watching a movie, and I'm like, I hear something. Okay, this is really cool. So,
Ferry, I've been going back over your latest singles. You've done like a 3-part EP, which is kind of like an album. The part 3 just came out there a few days ago, and there's definitely an evolution of sound. How has this scene influenced you in the last sort of 36 months? Because it's changed a lot.
It's changed a lot. It's been really going back and forth, and personally for me, I've been going back and forth between really a trancey sound, but also like an electro, certain elements from Big Room. But right now, I don't know, I really feel a certain like an urge, I guess, you know, to go back to the big melodies of trance. I mean, I personally can only take so much of like put your effing hands up, you know. It's time to move on for me. I hope the scene will do too. You see a lot of stuff happening now with this whole future house, as they call it, which is in my book still UK garage, but all good. But you know, so so over the last year and a half, 2 years, I've slowly been going back to the more melodic stuff, and I guess when this summer, when I did, after 13 years, did a new Gouryella release, you know, that sort of cemented for me, like, okay, now this is the place where I really want to be right now. It just felt good, and it's just the response of it was just overwhelming and very clear for me to see, you know, to say like, okay, I think this is definitely what the trance scene needs or wants.
Definitely with the Gouryella single Vioma and Follow You, you can definitely hear the classic Ferry sound coming back, and it put a smile on my face hearing that. Am I correct? I mean, what it kind of is probably lovely is that you know, I'd say 5 years ago you had to produce trance and that's all you could produce. Then it's become a bit freer, where you could produce a kind of, you know, main stage, put your hands in the air, but you can do trance, and then you can experiment with a bit of breaks and stuff. So do you feel freer as a producer nowadays than you did, say, 5-6 years ago?
In a way, but actually, to be honest, I've always really been experimenting with all kinds of stuff.
You have. I mean, you're not just your typical trance producer that did one sound. You flip-flopped, and there's a common thread with the Ferry Corsten sound in terms of there's a sound, there's a vibe, but you know, you would go dark electro, you would go full-on hands in the air, big melodies. So, I mean, you were very experimental. Yeah,
and that's just really something that I feel at the moment, you know, like, or when I'm in the studio, I've done like 3 trance records. Okay, I kind of want to do something else. Never really repeat my rhythm, basically. But I don't know. It's just seeing that trance has changed a lot as well. You know, a lot of the more popular trance acts, if you will, have gone a lot more EDM-ish almost. If you listen to that sort of trance, as they call it, versus EDM, straight up festival main stage stuff, it's very similar. It's very very similar. Maybe the melody and the interpretation of the melody and the reverbs, and it's maybe a bit more wet than the EDM stuff, which is usually a lot more dry. But other than that, it's just an EDM record, and I've noticed that the real trance scene is so like up in arms about it, like, why we don't want this, and it's almost like by doing something else right now, and this is sort of like the last 2 years. Although I should be the one saying like, no, I just do whatever I want. I really do feel a lot more hesitation with my older fans saying like, yeah, but we don't really want you to go EDM or whatever. Although I, as a producer, feel like I need to do it because I need to trigger myself. I need to stay ahead of like boredom,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And but a lot of people really don't get it or don't want to understand it because they want trance. And maybe right now, I'm in a good place where I also feel that I want that same sound. But I will not say like, okay, I will never move again. I will always make trance, but eventually I will just like I said, to keep myself happy. I need to just go left and right sometimes.
Yeah, you have to, and you can actually hear that in some of your releases. There's a left turn, there's a right turn, and that's. I can totally appreciate that as a producer, that we were expected to do one type of trance, and I was going, well, there's more to us than that. Let's get down to specifics about plugins and production and how you make records. First of all, what's your DAW and what is your favorite plugin? What plugin could you not live without?
I'm actually on Cubase. I'm on a Mac. I just got a really nice new little flower pot.
You got the trash can, I see, yeah?
I got a trash can, yeah. There you go.
And what are they like?
It's weird. It's like this thing there, and which is just standing there, and it's beautiful on its own. But that's your computer, and it's attached to this rig where I have got all my hard disks in right now. So it's not just that, but yeah, with that I'm on Cubase. I've always like what I mentioned earlier. Since Cubase on Atari, I kind of stuck with it. And my favorite plugin. I mean, there's so many great ones, but just my funny enough, the go-to plugin is either Nexus, or Silent.
Right. Okay.
And but Nexus is just, if I want to have a quick sound that just represents something I'm looking for, I just have to go through it, find a sound, play my melody or whatever. So I don't lose my idea or the momentum that I feel right there.
Okay.
And then make my track with it, and then if I want to fine tune it or have another sound, then I'll just bring out the Spires or the Silence or some of the other undefinable
synths.
Synths, yeah.
You've got some hardware sitting there. I see, like you've got a Nord Lead, you've got a Nexus, you've got a Waldorf Q, which we had and I hated. Do you ever go out of the box? Do you go to those things and start sort of getting tactile and moving knobs?
Sometimes, actually, to be honest, with since an era, Gouryella, to create that sort of sound, I wanted to go back to some of the older synths that I used to create the old Gouryellas, and it just I don't know, it sparked a whole new thing of like hardware. How cool is that? No latency. It's just there, and it's really cool again. It's a different way of working, and I kind of liked it.
Which brings me, when you've just mentioned about Gouryella and the old synths, and one of the questions I had wanted to ask is, what creates that famous Gouryella squelchy bass sound? What's the synth there? That's
a Roland XV 3080.
Right. Don't know it. Is that an old synth?
It's pretty. Yeah, it's actually pretty old. It's the little black one over there on top and the rig.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's one of those that responds to your velocity.
Yeah.
Sort of filtering of it, and but that's it. And funny enough, I've been, trying to recreate the same rawness as the really old Gouryellas.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get that. I don't know. I think it was just at the time I had a Soundcraft Live mixer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just I had a sort of raw sort of mid range. Yeah. And I think I used that or overused that at the time.
Do you think you might have to go and buy one off eBay and get it back in the studio just to get that old vibe going?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Sometimes I feel like doing it again, but yeah.
It must be hard when you're looking at Gouryella, because I've sometimes dabbled trying to look at our old tracks and seeing if I could recreate that, because again, people always say when he's coming back, when you get a new single, and I thought sometimes when you get a spare hour you dabble. But it's so hard to actually recreate that old sound, isn't it? It's really difficult. You've all these compressors and effects and UAD and wave stuff, and you keep using that, and you go, but it's all too polished and too shiny. So how do you get that old sound?
Well, I think if you listen to Anna Hera and versus the old Gouryellas, you definitely hear that it is a lot more polished.
Yeah.
So I guess really, unless I really had the same configuration again as back then, it definitely was going to sound different already. But what I do is is like A-Bing between those old tracks and now. And to be quite honest, if you listen to the old tracks as they were versus the new one, they don't stay up with the new one.
Exactly.
The new one sounds much better.
Yeah, you don't want it to sound too like the old one, because we've discussed earlier that we actually hate the sound of the old ones. So you're in the studio, you've opened up a copy of Cubase, you've got Sylenth, and you obviously use Sonic Academy's kick drum because it's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you get riffs? You are just the master at getting the big riff. What is it that you have that the rest of us don't have, and how do you get those big riffs? Just please tell somebody that can't write a riff anymore.
Well, I think Sylenth has a great sort of way of getting that, with some of the detuning that you can do, because those riffs sound so massive because they back in the day I just got them out of the JP8000 with the super saw, and that was just a certain way of detuning your oscillators. That's why it sounds so big and wide.
Yeah.
And it's always like trying to find.
I'd argue it's not all. I mean, it is part of the sound, but you're writing as well. That the riffs that you're laying down are so memorable and so ingrained in your brain. So I mean,
the way I see a perfect trance melody, honestly, is something that it's like a circle. You start here and it builds somewhere, and it's so very. How can I say? It starts here, it comes back around. So it's almost like when you're at the end of the melody, you want to feel like you're falling back into it, and never have a loose end. If you have like super high note somewhere, you end on that, and your first note is super low again. It feels like it doesn't really, in my mind, it doesn't compute. And
so you like to see it like it's kind of like a resolve at the end of every melody. You're always looking to look back to the next phrase of it.
In a way, yeah, and also, the best way to describe it is almost like the steps that I take and the little accent notes that I do in the melodies are very often. The only way to describe it is like it's symmetrical. Whatever happens in bar 1 and bar 2, and I modulate it to the next sort of key or whatever it is. That same thing needs to happen there again.
Okay.
So it's a very symmetrical melody. Very and like I said, like it's a little story on its own.
Okay.
That's part of the bigger story. It's hard to
Absolutely no. I'm sort of going. Yeah, I can picture. I'm picturing a piano roll with you putting in passing notes, and then it's reflected in bar 3 and bar 4. What comes first for you? Do you write the melody first, or do you write a chord sequence and then get the melody on top of that? What's or is it different?
Yeah, usually it's definitely the melody, because I always envisioned making a track like this where what's the most important thing, especially in the trance record? What is the most important thing? It's the melody. You know, and I love this whole discussion that's going on between the trance fans of like supporting 138 BPM versus I don't care. You know, in the end, a trance record is a melody, nothing more, nothing less. And whatever tempo you put it at doesn't really matter. I hear like some amazing minimal techno tracks at 123 with a melody on there, and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing trance record. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, melody first. And I guess also really it's a combination of the melody and the sound. I've always been a big fan of opposites, and I think a really good example of what I mean is my track Beautiful. That had a beautiful melody, but it was played with a very distorted sound. Okay. So it's, on the one hand, it's the sweetness of the melody itself, the emotion, versus the crunchy, distorted aggression of the sound itself. You know, and those two together are like conflicting emotions in a way in one part of the track. And so it's not just the melody that is very important, but it's just also the sound you bring that melody with.
And do you do a lot of sound design, or you kind of just grab a preset and tweak it type dude?
Most of that, yeah.
Well, I mean, at somebody at your level, when you're traveling so much, I mean, I'd say that 90% of producers, I mean, I'm like that, you know, we build synths and stuff here, but still, you go to a preset and then it gets you in the area, and then it's just a matter of tweaking it. That's,
exactly. Like, look for something that is close to it. Yeah. And of what to what you're looking for. Yeah. And sometimes, I can't find it, and I actually do get my silent out, you know, and starting from a sine, and then see where it ends.
What would be your favorite synth that people wouldn't really know that you use? Would, you know, we give you silence, we'll give you, you know, Nexus and stuff. Is there one sort of kind of weird synth that you go, you know, this is a big part of my sound that nobody? What's your secret weapon, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
It's not really a secret weapon. I mean, the secret weapon really is in the combination of whatever sound I get in a melody, like I told you earlier. But I do have some of those synths, like Waves Element.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like there's another one. Cyclope. Cyclops. Yeah. It's a weird one. It jumps from left to right, and it's almost like a runaway train that you cannot, or like a horse you can't seem to tame, right? But it has these weird sort of little things in there that sometimes when you use it the right way, it's just amazing. You know, it gives it that character to your track that that you couldn't really do by just using Nexus, for example.
Perfect.
I
take it you don't use templates. You can clearly hear that you don't use templates, you know. So do you have a big bank of drums, or how do you start putting your drums together? Do you find a new clap every track, or do you have sort of 10 claps that you really like, or 10 hats, or is there, you know, a Ferry Corsten Uber kit or something built?
An Uber kit. Yeah. You know what? I've been thinking of putting one together, but that idea actually started already about 7-8 years ago, and it never happened. So it's very unlikely that will ever happen. But I do have like a super sample library with like tons of 500 best tuned EDM kicks or whatever, you know, this and that. You know, I love the Muteki stuff. You know, it's just, but I do definitely get creative with finding new hi-hats, new claps, just to create this new, you know, new groove, new sound, new character to your groove. Yeah.
Perfect. So in 2015 or 16, sorry, we're coming into what's sort of the year ahead. Are you taking Gouryella live on the road and sort of doing a big show with it? Is that the idea?
Yeah, you know, I actually the whole thing with Gouryella is something that just really grew organically. You know, after 13 years, I felt it was really time to bring it back, and I've been running around with the idea of Gouryella, of bringing another Gouryella track to the scene, but to be quite honest, I wasn't able to find that right Gouryella melody, the vibe. Maybe my mind wasn't there. You know, I was just, you know, busy with other stuff, and I really believe that when you create music, you got to be in the right frame of mind to find certain things. and I think I wasn't in that space to find a Gouryella. Although I was looking, and I had tons of little trance melodies, but everything was just another trance record. Not that didn't have that Gouryella feel.
Yeah.
Until now, this one, and so yeah, when I released it, yeah, response was there after 13 years. Wow. And so was the response of certain promoters around the world, saying like, "Hey, have you ever thought of doing anything live with it?" No, it was not. I never, and actually didn't want to. It was just the way I saw it. It was just going to be a release, you know, and maybe the next Gouryella, if I do one again, somewhere next year or so. Back in the day, it was also like that. You know, the 4 Gouryellas that were before this were all with a space of like a year and a half in between, right? So that's how I saw this as another release, and that's it. And Ferry Corsten, the DJ, plays a Gouryella track. But yeah, when we had so many promoters and you know, interested, it's like, hey, you know, we would love to have you doing a festival for us as Gouryella. You know, yeah, I mean, and the response of people saying, you know, wish this is coming back. So I was like, okay, maybe I should just give it a try, give it a go, and see what we can do. And yeah, it's gonna be be an interesting show. I mean, definitely, it will definitely have that whole Gouryella vibe all the way through. So right now I'm actually fine tuning like all the old stuff. You know, like I said, I don't want to really play the old stuff because they don't stay up with the new stuff. But
you just give them a little refresh. Is it?
Well, it's definitely They sound like they are. It's just refreshed. Yeah. It's like I made that same record exactly the same today.
Yeah,
that's how it sounds. So it stands really strong right next to Anahera, you know, and in terms of, you know, sound wise basically. And yeah, so that's I'm working on quite some new stuff also for that show right now, and yeah, it comes with a whole visual sort of thing as well that we're working on right now as well.
And so that'll be on stage with keyboards and live acts and not DJing. It's a live show. It's a proper live show.
No. It's DJing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's DJing, but it's you know, it definitely has a show.
Oh, sorry, I got completely confused there. Sorry, dude. What else is planned for 2016? I know you're still relentlessly touring around the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of stuff happening again. I'm doing a lot of the States next year. That's already I can see that happening already again. And Gouryella shows, obviously.
Sorry, I know you've done States. You know, probably you're one of the first ones to be out there, hammering away. excuse me, 78 years ago, probably even longer. Really relentlessly touring prior to this whole big explosion. So it must be kind of very different going back now when it's, you know, it's so huge. You've seen the country going from enjoying it in certain cities to the whole country now of 250 million people mad for EDM. Yeah,
you know, I think just like the music, it was a lot more raw at the time. You know, I'm not saying like it was better then; it's just different then.
Yeah.
You know, I love it now as well because I really felt back in the day it was us as a dance scene, as small as we are, we were at the time. You know, we were fighting hip hop and R&B,
big time,
you know, massive, because every club, every restaurant, every clothing store you went to, it was R&B, you know, or if there was a dance track, it was super commercial, you know, and every interview again, you had to sort of like defend electronic music. There was no EDM; it was electronic dance music, right? Or EDM as a whole. Now it's a genre, but and now, yeah, it's different. You just in any restaurant, any hotel, lobby, elevator, whatever, there's electronic music playing. So it's cool. It's something, you know, that a lot of people with me who were playing, you know, in the States before the big bubble burst, right? Were fighting for in a way, you know, and it's great to see that it's as big as it is right now. So every there's pros and cons, right? I mean, it's great that it's so big. On the other hand, it's, you know, because it's so big, there's so many people who start making music just for the fame, you know. And honestly, in certain areas, you know, the quality of music is not the best right now. You know, or it's let's put it that way. It was more creative back in the day.
You were talking earlier on about what's the most important part of the trance record? It's the melody line, and I was thinking to myself, what's the most important part of an EDM record is the social media stats these days. You know, it's kind of that's, you know, there's I can't remember which DJ there was a guy came up to him and said, you know, I want to be a DJ, and he rhymed off his publicity plan, his social media stats, before he even mentioned the piece of music he had made, you know, and it was kind of like, whoa, this is just, you know, this is gone crazy, you know. So 2016, lots more touring. You've done Hallo World, which is a kind of a 3-part album. Is that going to be a thing for next year, rather than doing a huge album? Is maybe do 3 mini albums that add up to an album over the course of 12 months, or was that an experiment, or what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it was definitely an experiment. I just wanted to see, you know, especially with today music being so disposable. You know, you release a record now, and you know, it's all tomorrow, by tomorrow, right? And so I just wanted to see what happened, you know. If you do an album, it's like by the time your album comes out, there's tracks on there that are a year or a year and a half old, right? So especially with music changing so fast, it could almost sound dated by the time it's released. And also, so that was one. I was just like, okay, what if I just chop it up into 3 parts, you know, as a mini series in a way, and release every other 4 months, basically release another installment, and the music that's on those EPs is produced over like the last 3 months, 4 months, right? So pretty much 3 months, because you need some lead time to put it in the market and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot more current. And I just wanted to see how that would work. Also in terms of marketing and press around it. Instead of releasing one big album, you get everything then, boom, and that's your visibility in the market, like in terms of press. But you release another EP, another part, and everybody's again like, hey, part 2 is coming out. Everybody's writing about it again. So like spreading out this whole thing a lot more. I just wanted to see how it worked, and it was actually pretty interesting how it turned out.
I think as I was looking at it going, this is a much more interesting way to do it, to stagger it over, and it's much more reflective of where you're at, because you could definitely hear there's a movement from Hallo World 1 to 3, and you can hear that you're going from that sort of kind of more radio American sound, and then becoming back more to trance towards the end with what do you call it? Follow Me and so yeah, I think it's for me as a consumer, and if I was going back into producing, that's definitely the way I'd want to do it. I think you release an album that's probably 12 months work, and it can be over in 2 weeks, and you're like, right, okay, so another 12
waste like a year of my life to just blood, sweat and tears, and it's all by the time people start really enjoying it. So yeah.
Ferry, I want to thank you so much for coming on to Sonic Academy with me today and chatting. I'd love to really bore everybody and talk about the old days ad nauseum for the next 2 hours, but I can't, you know. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best in the future, and thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, man, and nice talking to you. And since I've been talking to you, actually I should just get Hudson Street out again and start playing that again.
We should.
One of my favorites of you, man.
Thank you very much. Guys, thank you very much for joining us on Sonic Academy today. I hope you all got something from it, from one of the masters of the scene who's done it, been there and created scenes in America himself, and created a massive catalogue. If you go onto Wikipedia and just look at the catalogue of work that Ferry has produced over the last 15, 18 years, it is huge. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all very, very soon.